Coming in for the west will give us some clouds, showers, and thunderstorms today, tonight, and Wednesday. There'll be some sunshine during the day, but showers and thunderstorms will be in the forecast as well. The high today near 85, the low tonight near 70, and it'll be about 75 to 80 Wednesday. We dry out Thursday as high pressure builds in, partly to mostly sunny, cooler in the 60s. Jonesboro, that's your KLEK 102.5 FM weather.
From Feature Story News in London, I'm Ollie Barrett. Turkey says it will be allowed to search the Saudi consulate in Istanbul after the disappearance of a writer. US President Donald Trump's apologised to his new Supreme Court judge Brett Kavanaugh over his controversial confirmation. It's claimed the second suspect in the Salisbury poisonings was also a member of Russia's military intelligence agency, and India's health ministry has confirmed 22 people have tested positive for the mosquito-borne Zika virus.
It's 9:01.
Community Conversations is brought to you by Arkansas Early Learning, offering no-cost childcare in Jonesboro and Northeast Arkansas. Applications at arearlylearning.org.
Arkansas Early Learning is a nonprofit organization.
KLEK LP Jonesboro, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council. It's now time for Community Conversations, a program focusing on the people working to make the Jonesboro community a better place, while offering viewpoints from all sides of the issues. The views expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of KLEK 102.5 FM, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council, or our underwriters or sponsors.
Good morning, everyone, and happy Tuesday to you. I hope that you're having a great start to your day. You're tuned in to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM, and I have for my part one guest on the phone, Mr. John Thurston. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
All right, Mr. John is running for Arkansas Secretary of State. So let's get into some brief introductions of yourself for those of my listeners and viewers who may not know you, sir.
Sure. I am a native Arkansan. I grew up in Saline County. I'm a husband and a father of 5. And I had been in the ministry for 13 years and CRA in the state prison system, and did a lot of ministry work. And in 2010, I decided to run for land commissioner. I'd always been interested in politics, but just thought I wanted to get involved, and there was an opportunity in the land commissioner's position. So I ran in 2010, and I was blessed by the people of Arkansas. They elected me. They re-elected me for a second term. So I've been land commissioner now for 8 years, and am now running for Secretary of State. Secretary of State, the current Secretary of State is term limited. It's an open seat, and I am applying for that position, depending on if the people of Arkansas want to hire me or not. But I am on the ballot in November.
All right, so let's get into some of the duties of the Secretary of State, and then tell us why you decided to run for this position. I'm sure that it'll be a change from land commissioner.
Sure, it will be a change in responsibilities, but it's a constitutional office, like the land commissioner's office, meaning a constitutional office. We don't make the laws. We're administrators, if you will.
Okay.
And so I don't make the rules, I don't pass the laws, but I carry out the laws. So the Secretary of State has several line items of business. It's multifaceted, but the main areas that it works with or deals with is elections, the Capitol and Capitol grounds, the Business Commercial Services Division, that's what I call the on and off ramp.
Okay.
If someone wants to do business in Arkansas, that's where you go first. You go there to file your corporation, and that's where you pay your corporate tax also.
Okay.
But,
all right.
But I don't want to ramble on because I don't know how much time we have.
Oh, we still have like 17 minutes, so.
Oh, good. We have plenty of time.
Yes, sir.
But you asked why I'm running for Secretary of State.
Yes. And
I'm running for the same reason I ran for land commissioner, and that is to serve. I mean, I've been serving people for the better part of my life, and I look at being elected just similar to how I looked at ministry. You know, you're there to serve the people, and that's how I look at it. And a constitutional office has a huge learning curve. When I was elected in 2010, I was green. I was about as green as you could be walking into a constitutional office. And, you know, over the past 8 years, I have learned so much on how an office like that runs, how legislation works, how budgets work. And so I've been responsible for an annual budget of $40 million in the Commissioner of State Lands Office.
Okay.
And we have a staff of 38, I believe now, which usually hovers around 40. But I believe we have 38 professionals on staff. So I have been through a transition. I have managed people. I have implemented systems, controls, policies, and procedures to carry out my statutory responsibility. And so I believe that experience that I've learned over the past 8 years on how to run an office will benefit me greatly in the Secretary of State's office.
Okay. I want to go through some of these responsibilities and get your take on what decisions you may make if you are elected on these different items. Let's just start with the Secretary of State has jurisdiction over state election laws. Right now, one of the hot topics is voter ID. And so some people are for, some people are against. There's a lot of talk about those that are for it are possibly because there could be voter fraud and some other issues that have come up in discussions I've seen on social media sites. What is your take on state election laws, and what are some things you may want to implement if you are elected?
Sure. Now, just personally, and I'm speaking as a citizen and voter in Arkansas now, I am 100% for voter ID.
Okay.
Now, the legislatures, they passed, it's state law now that you have to show your ID when you go vote. In November, November the 6th, it will be on the ballot to put it into our Constitution that voter ID, our ID is required when you vote. So the voters are going to actually get to vote on this subject in November. And so now that I've kind of said where I stand on it, you know, my positions as a constitutional office will be whatever the law is.
Okay.
So, and that's kind of, you know, sometimes we try to sensationalize an office like Land Commissioner or Secretary of State, but if you go in there trying to go outside of your lane, if you will, the first thing you do is you find out what business you're in, what business you're not in, and then you stay within your jurisdiction. So I hope I answered your question. I am for voter ID, but it will be up to the people in November. And of course, it is state law now, but I know it's been contested in court, whether or not it's constitutional and so forth.
Okay.
You know, voter fraud takes place. It does. I mean, I have one example. I mean, there's many examples, but one particular example in this one county. I was visiting with the county clerk, and they said they had an individual that voted in 6 elections that were not a U.S. citizen. Now, they were here legally. I'm not saying they were illegal. They were here legally, but they actually voted in 6 elections before they caught or realized that they were not a U.S. citizen. So the more, procedures and safeguards we can put in place to ensure accurate elections, the better, in my opinion.
Okay. I do want to give the disclaimer, I forgot to give in the very beginning, that KLEK does not support or endorse any particular candidate. No compensation was given for this interview, and this interview is strictly for informational purposes only, so that you, the listeners and viewers, can make an informed decision when you go to the polls. Either you do early voting or you do regular voting in November. So this is strictly for information so that you can become an informed voter. And all the thoughts and views expressed are not necessarily those of KLEK. So I just want to put that out there so that my listeners and viewers understand that you are expressing your own personal views and, you know, what you hope to bring to the office if you are elected. Concerning election laws or voter ID in particular, I have also heard the argument that if this is inducted into the Constitution, it can essentially set us back as I hate to say a state or a country, back to the early years during the Civil Rights Movement. Many individuals have that thought process. And so what would you say to those that feel that way?
Well, I don't totally understand that because if you don't have an ID, which I don't know who does not have an ID, but I'm sure it happens.
Okay.
But if you don't have an ID, the county clerk will print you an ID for you. They have printing capabilities. They have ID printing capabilities in each county clerk's office, and they will print you one. So, you know, when you register to vote, some of the information that has to be on that registration card, one, you have to have either your driver's license number or the last 4 digits of your social. And when you mail that in, you're supposed to scan a photo ID when you send in when you register to vote. And if you don't send in your ID, now this is past law. This is pre voter ID state law right now. If you didn't scan it and send it in, then when you first showed up at the poll to vote, you had to show voter ID. So identification is not new.
Okay.
So that's why I don't totally understand that argument from the other side.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I want to move on to some of the others before our time winds down. Again, you're tuned into Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We're speaking with Mr. John Thurston, who is the candidate for, I say Arkansas Secretary of State, but I think it's Secretary of State Arkansas. Either way, the Secretary of State for the state of Arkansas. All right. So some other of your duties include qualifying statewide and state district candidates and ballot initiatives. How will you determine or decide, what needs to be on the ballot, what, needs further investigation, further research, if something was to come up? And then do you also decide when and if to hold special elections throughout the year?
Sure. When there's a ballot initiative, the wording is approved by the Attorney General.
Okay.
So the Secretary of State doesn't approve the wording.
Okay.
The Secretary of State's office does count these signatures and verify signatures and verify they're registered and so forth. And I've been told that the time frame that the Secretary of State has to do this it's too short. It needs to be lengthened. I believe it's a month. They have a month to count these votes.
Okay.
And so I would probably argue that we may need a little bit more time to make sure we're doing a good job. Someone have presented to me that why don't we do this electronically, meaning that if you had an iPad, and I don't know that I'm for this, I'm just pointing out, a thought that someone had. Maybe the voters can kind of, if they're listening, they can kind of maybe see what they think. But you have your iPad, you walk up to a registered voter, are you registered? Yes. And then you're able to pull up their, okay, your name's blah, blah. You pull it up, and, you can sign with those pads.
Yes.
The little pen and pad nowadays.
Okay.
That would make it easier for signatures to be gathered. But, I'm sure there's issues that need to be looked at. But that's just a thought that someone presented to me. So, but yeah, the Attorney General is the one who approves the wording, not the Secretary of State. And what was your next question? I don't know if I answered that one.
Concerning candidates as well, do you feel that before just approving someone, even if they have the required number of signatures, maybe determine if further investigation needs to be done, or just research on that individual as a whole before you approve or deny whether they are eligible to be on the ballot or run for a particular office?
Oh, kind of like a background check on someone, whether before they run for office?
Well, yes. I don't know what the background check includes now, or if there is even a background check done. But
right.
Is there?
Well, a vetting. I guess you're kind of saying some type of vetting system before
Yes.
someone even gets on the ballot.
Yes, sir.
Boy, I would be hesitant to go down that road.
Okay.
Because we're represented. We the people, we represent the people. We govern ourselves, I guess. And so, what would be the criteria or
Okay.
the standard of who could run for office? My goodness, boy, if it was too tight, probably none of us would be able to run for office. So,
I understand.
yeah, I'd be hesitant to go down that road.
Okay, I understand. And then we have about 5.5 minutes left. So I want to ask you about, you mentioned earlier how the Secretary of State's position, they handle all of the registrations for new businesses. When a business approaches the state about wanting to go into a particular city or county, does the Secretary of State maybe, I hate to say put a pause on them, or just before they accept someone, do they do, again, some research and to see if this business will be beneficial to the state or to the city or county in which they're applying for?
Well, I mean, I guess I would have to be hesitant there as well because,
Okay.
Free market, free enterprise, and of course, capitalism. I guess the community would probably determine whether or not the business is valid or needed, whether or not they use the business.
Okay.
So,
Well, can you possibly explain the process of once someone registers for, is it a license to run a business within the state?
well, I do not. Well, I know we have a couple of minutes, but I do know that the system needs to be streamlined. Now, I do know that. I mean, there are the issues that I've been visiting with some attorneys that do start up corporations for people. One problem that we have is when you go to the website to start a business, and the system accepts the name that you have chosen for your business.
Okay.
And you're like, okay, great. My name hasn't been, this name of the company that I want to use is not being used in Arkansas. You're ready to roll. And then the next thing you know, you get a phone call from the Secretary of State saying, well, you can't use that one. It's a little bit too close to another company's name. So that software needs to be upgraded because it's very irritating, and people have shared their frustration with me that when they're rolling, they're ready to get things going, and all of a sudden they get a call, well, that name is too close to another name.
Okay.
So that needs to be changed. I've also been told that it's harder to dissolve a corporation than it is to start one.
Oh, okay.
And so when you dissolve a corporation, there's a dissolving fee of $50, and there are some other fees. So you wind up paying around $250 just to dissolve your corporation. Well, if a company is going out of business, then they just say, well, why bother? Why pay the filing fee, and why dissolve the company? Well, for a name to come off of the rolls or books there in the Secretary of State's office, it takes 7 years for it to just come off naturally, I guess, by being delinquent. So
Okay.
that's a long time for a name to be tied up and not and someone not being able to use that particular name. So there are a lot of issues, and I'm being educated almost daily on all of the issues, and so yeah, there'll be a lot to do.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for your answers, for answering my questions. And in our last 2.5 minutes, I would like to give you this time to go over anything we did not cover or just state your final case. And again, KLK does not support any candidate. This is provided. This interview was provided for informational purposes only. So, whatever the candidate says, this is their point. This is their views. These are their views, and so you, the voter, will make a decision based on what you hear. So, Mr. Thurston, you have the floor for about another 2 minutes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for letting me come on today. I had to pull over on the side of Highway 10 here in Pulaski County, and but it's been an honor serving as land commissioner. And, you know, the Secretary of State's office handles so many important roles that affect Arkansans when it comes to elections, securing the Capitol. You know, most people don't talk about that when it comes to the office, but I want to make sure the Capitol is as secure as possible. When school kids come into that building, I want to make sure it's the safest place in Arkansas when they come into that building. So I'll be looking at things there, systems to put in place, and protocol and such. But the Business Commercial Service Division, very important to me. I want to streamline it. I want it to be easy to do business in Arkansas. You know, I want it to not just be easy for someone out of state to come here and do business, but I want it to be easy for people who want to start a business who may not know what to do. You know, they may be overwhelmed when they go to the website. I want the website to be user-friendly and easy to navigate through for young or new entrepreneurs who are venturing out. But I do appreciate your vote. My name is John Thurston. Arkansas knows me. They know my record. I've been serving 8 years, and you know, my goal, and I'll close with this, my goal as an elected official is to do such a good job that Arkansans can live their lives, pursue their careers, raise their families, and not be concerned one bit about the office that they have trusted me with. So with that, I'm asking for everyone's vote, November the 6th.
All right, well, thank you so very much for your time, Mr. Thurston, and thank you out there to my listeners and viewers. But stay tuned, part 2 of Community Conversations coming up right after these announcements.
You're listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back.